Racism. Boy, ain't that a great way to start the video. Excuse me, sir, ma'am, and/or creature. Do you like cartoons? I do. And I find that political cartoons are some of the best out there. Not a lot of things can integrate humor into such a serious topic as politics. I mean, if you Google just simply political cartoon, you're gonna get tons and tons of search results just of great, funny, maybe not accurate with what you believe, but they're there and they get their point across. But something they do to make their comics more humorous and also to make certain people more identifiable is they exaggerate certain features of people. For example, let's look at this comic of Trump. I mean, clearly you can see what they're exaggerating. But there are some things that you are not allowed to criticize this way. There are certain things that no matter what the context, no matter what the situation, no matter what the intent, you cannot exaggerate. Minorities. Alright, let's look at the meat of the matter. There is a political cartoonist that works for the Herald Sun named Mark Knight. And there are two main things that he focuses his cartoons on: Australian politics and sports. He also manages to focus on Trump a lot in there. But since one of his main focuses is sports, he's obviously going to be doing a cartoon for that Serena Williams story that's been going around recently. You know, she lost a game, broke her tennis racket. I don't fucking know, I don't follow tennis. You know, she ends up causing a ruckus, and next thing you know, there's stories galore. But someone dared to make a cartoon about it. And oh boy. Oh boy. There was just a little bit of drama that followed. People call this comic racist. Some even called it sexist. Some people just labeled him a bigot for drawing such a monstrosity. So hold on. Brace yourselves. You need to get prepared for this. We're gonna look at the comic. Brace yourselves. Oh my god! And yeah, what do you know? Everyone's calling it racist. So, let's do a little bit of a test first. Since people are comparing this to the very old racist cartoon depictions of people who are of particular races, and the reason I go with that is because I don't know what the fuck to call them without offending someone, we are actually going to compare this to the actual cartoons of old. We're going to compare this to Looney Tunes. Ah, yes. This is a classic racist cartoon. Lumbering oaf with huge lips, a ginormous forehead, and a very slack posture. This, along with many similar depictions back in the day, is what people this day and age would call, and I tend to agree, pretty racist. Because this is the only depiction you'd really get of African Americans in that time period. And the entire intent of it, yeah, was to keep these sorts of minorities down. And what were the things that were always blamed for their lumbering oaf postures and all that? Was always because of their race. That was the target. But, as I listed earlier, there are certain traits which are most prominently associated with this sort of depiction. Giant lips, giant forehead, a very slack posture, and probably the most demeaning of all is either easy to rage and anger, or just general idiocy. Now, let's look back to the comic. Well, yeah, we have the big lips, and there is the depiction of her raging, which could harken back to the racism, as I stated earlier. But other than that, not really. Now, I'm not going to go and say this is at all flattering. I mean, of course, this is obviously a negative depiction of this person. So, of course, the guy who's drawing it is exaggerating because he does want it to be a negative depiction of this person. And hell, just to back up my point, this style of big lipness, he's done more drawings like this for white people that he doesn't like. So with that into account, this comic doesn't seem that bad when it is just his sense of style, even though it does sort of harken back to that sort of era of racist comics. I don't think that's the intent. So when I take that into consideration, I don't consider this to be racist, as he does depict the same types of features on other people, like white people, in his comics as well. So beyond that, I can't really say this is racist, since he does depict white people with the same exaggerated features, and it just happens when you flip them over to the other side, it's gonna look pretty ugly. But hold on, let's take this back one more step. Let's compare this to Serena Williams in real life. Yes, well, I can definitely determine that this is someone I don't want to get punched by. But in serious, again, let's analyze this. Incredible muscular physique. Tick. Large assets. I mean, yeah. Hairstyle's pretty much the same. Forehead, I would say it's actually shrunken down in the comic. But the kicker, the most important thing to consider. The lips. Yeah, no, yes, no. I can't really tell from this picture, if I'm honest. Look, I'm no cartoon strip artist, so I don't really know what's going through their head when they're looking for certain features on someone to exaggerate. Tony Abbott's ears or Julia Gillart's nose, like, you want to exaggerate things that are typically already large. And for Serena here, I can't really tell if that would be the best thing to exaggerate. I mean, again, I'm not a cartoon strip artist, but looking at this image alone, off the top of my head, the two best things I would have seen to exaggerate here would have been the nose and the forehead. Or maybe the hair, but, you know, I'm pretty sure somebody would have said that exaggerating any of those things would have been racist too. The best way I can think to give a reason to why this is the way it is because she's having a tantrum. And usually when someone's yelling and screaming in these types of cartoon strips, the mouth is very prominent. But I guess you can't do that for a minority because that's racism. You know what? Here. Let's go get another close-up image of her. We'll look at that, and then we can best decide whether the lips truly were the best thing to exaggerate. Maybe this is just a bad image. Oof. Okay. This might sound a little bit edgy. Might sound a little bit racist, but yeah, I can definitely tell why they were exaggerated. Again, someone who looks at Tony Abbott's ears and exaggerates those is gonna think the same thing when they see something like this. And it's not out of racism, it's just out of the artistic style and the choice that the artist makes whenever he exaggerates something. He's targeting things that are already pretty exaggerated on the face in the first place. You know what? It doesn't matter what he exaggerates and whether it harkens back to what or whatever. That ultimately doesn't matter. What does matter here, to whether this is racist or not, is the intent. What was he doing it for? What is the reason for him making this the way it is? And as much as I know that people on the internet don't like to look at intent because, that makes it so you can't accuse people of actually being racist. Because let's be honest, everybody takes every opportunity they can to rip apart anyone no matter what they do for whatever reason. Again, I commented on him in my last video, but Count Dankula anyone. Man, you really apply to a lot of controversial shit, don't you? Alright, now let's look at what the response from this man is. Let's see what his reasoning for this exaggeration is, alright? He's targeting her behavior. Again, she's screaming, she's ranting, she's raving. Big mouth, because, you know, that's what happens. So, in looking at this, I just gotta say, it seems pretty reasonable. Her race was never targeted. Her race was never brought into the equation. It was never a point of contention. Her race was simply that. Her race. What really is exaggerated here is her actions. She didn't actually throw her racket to the ground and jump up and down like a huge woman child and break the racket into little tiny bits like it's there. Like, again, that's an exaggeration, but that's truly what he's critiquing here. It's got nothing to do with her race. And also, might I say, props to this lady for saying that he's not only racist, but he's also sexist. And then he thoroughly shut her down by posting a comic that he made literally a week before. But I don't know. This just it doesn't seem like actual racism to me. I can get where people are coming from because, again, it sort of looks like a racist depiction, but that's kind of where the comparisons stop. That's it. It looks semi-racist. Okay, there was never an attack on anyone, there was never some accusation that this race is bad, there was never saying, this is what all black sports women and men are like. There was never any of that. It was just, he made a comic, his style happened to look fairly similar to something back in 1920, no, a bit far back, but you get my point, like back in the old days when segregation was still a thing. People just blew it out of proportion. But, you know, I never really understood stereotypes. I mean, like, you've got the stereotypes like, like that. Obviously, you have the old black stereotypes, but there's a stereotype where it's always like some white skinny kid who sits in his room and, you know, jerks off to cartoons and watches nothing but anime and wears glasses to... Motherfucker.